Hello everybody, you remember me? It's Bash, the guy who made the English Fighter Maker tutorial that everyone was questioning years after I made. And since I was working on a game in Fighter Maker for a year and a half or so before it got cease and desisted, I thought it was time to actually make another tutorial in Fighter Maker since I know the goddamn engine like the back of my hand now. So before we start anything, I need to preface this engine is not very good. It can do like a basic fighting game, but that's about it. You should really only use this engine if you're just getting into fighting games, like we did. It cannot support higher resolutions, you can't do complicated online net play, you can't do unlockable characters, you can't do over 8 colors, none of that nonsense. You can't do any of that, unfortunately. So, let's get into how to make a goddamn fighting game, shall we? So first off, we're not going to do anything in Fighter Maker at first. We're actually going to move into a completely different program, because before you make a fighting game, you need the assets, which is why our new project isn't out yet, or even started. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into a different program that that is called View, IR Fan View. I don't care what you call it, it's something. It makes editing sprites for Fighter Maker specifically very easily. What did I do? Oh, that's right, you have to hold control if you want to zoom in. Whoops. Some memes just flashed on the screen. I'm sorry. Okay, so the character I chose for this to do for the tutorial is Jotaro Kujo, because who doesn't love you some JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Probably a lot of people, but I don't care. This is just for the sake of the tutorial, but he's got all the special moves and stuff in here and all the get hits, so we're just going to go ahead and use this. Before you do anything, get your character sprite sheet, or yeah, you're going to need a sprite sheet. You're not going to do them one by one unless you're stupid. So, first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go up to this corner up in the top here that says Image. After you open your image, first off, you go to this corner that says Decrease or Image, and then you scroll down to where you see the option Decrease Color Depth. You can't see it on my screen because my recording software is dumb. But once you click on it, you'll see this little notification here. Or not notification, but this window will pop up. This window is pretty much how many colors do you want in the palette. And you want 256 at the most. I usually don't use this because I find that this does some image issues. You use custom, type in 256, you'll be fine. But in Fighter Maker can only support 256 colors in a single palette. And we're going to learn some palette tricks so your palette doesn't get insanely huge. But if you're trying to use sprites like those for fighting as magic, because that's what a lot of people use Fighter Maker for, is fighting as magic mods, you're going to want to decrease your color amount to something like 32. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase this color to 256. When you download IR Fan View from the get-go, you're going to get this box checked. Turn this shit off. What it does is, let's press this button. First off, what it does is it pretty much takes the image and separates it into, it dots it with a similar color, but that's slightly different from the color next to it. It makes a polka dot pattern that you can't see it as a different color until you change the color of something else. I'd show you what I mean, but I don't want to go through that trouble. So now we can actually start doing stuff in Fighter Maker. Fighter Maker, well, when you open Fighter Maker, you're going to be greeted with this screen. Right now we're just going to use versus mode, don't worry about it. All this stuff here, it's still showing, yeah? Yeah, we're good. All this stuff here we're going to define later. We'll just go ahead and turn this all to fucking 0, because that's dumb. So, we're going to go ahead and get into this. First, before we do anything, let's go into the demos thing so we can actually do character select and whatever. Add demo. We'll just call this one base demo. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what I'm going to use for mine. This part right here, basic script, is what we're going to be using for the round start animations, the heads up display, the KO and perfect notifications, the win-lose notifications, the timer, all that good stuff. And I'll teach you guys how to make a combo counter and later. Combo counter and later. Yeah, combo counter and all that later on. So next tab here. These are all your hit junctions, and for those who don't know what a hit junction is, a hit junction is what happens when you punch someone, pretty much. So let's say you wanted to do a light punch, and it hits the enemy when they're standing, it'd go to hit WK stand. Let's just go ahead and rename that now. Hit, oh, caps lock, hit light stand. There you go. Easy as pie. So I'm going to go ahead and change these real quick, and I'll be right back. So as you can see here, I went ahead and renamed all the existing hit states, added some more because they're only light and heavy versions for the hits and blocks. I added medium versions. You don't have to do all this, I just like to, so it makes it easier to understand. And we have these down here, which I added, which are launch light, medium, and heavy, and trip light, medium, and heavy. If you want to add a hit junction, we'll just add another one here, and we'll call it grab. This probably isn't going to be used very often, but yeah, you know, why not? You just have to right click, press add hit junction, there you go. It's as easy as that. I don't know if it shows up when I do that because my overlay isn't right next to it. Anyway, common images. We're gonna need to set these up later. I can't really make these make any sense right now with how they're working, or with how they work without having a character already in the makings with basic hits and whatever going on. So we'll come back to that later. Character selection picture. This kind of makes sense just from the title. It's defining your character select screen, and I will give you a base setup for character select screen so you can make everything work, but we will not be using this to define our character select screen per se. We're going to be defining it in the characters themselves. So, with all of that out of the way, we're going to go ahead, make sure everything's at the base demo and all that. We're going to move on to characters and cover everything that's in characters right here. So first, before you change any of this, as you can see, I can't change anything aside from that number and this number until I make a character. So let's add a character and name him Jotaro Kujo. There you go. Perfect. So you can set their age, that's not really important, blah blah blah. I don't know how old Jotaro is, so let's just go 21. Set their gender, this also doesn't matter. And this here is what you define their guard states as. So let's say you want to make your game based off Killer Instinct, and you like the fact that in Killer Instinct you can't block when you jump. Just don't check this box. They won't be able to block in the air. Or say you don't want guarding at all. I don't know why you'd want that, but just don't check either of these boxes. You want to check this box unless it's a boss character. If you want a character to be unplayable for certain characters, you check that box, or for certain modes. You only really got two modes. You got single player, versus, and versus team, which we can convert into an options menu later on. That's going to require some advanced coding though, so be prepared for that. So, a lot of people, I've noticed, use this to define their blocking. You don't need to do that unless you're going for a Mortal Kombat style game that has a block button. If you just want to hold back to block, leave that alone and check these boxes. If you want a block button, turn that on, turn these off. That's all you need. Okay, so right here, this is when start gets to get a little odd. So we're going to go ahead and explain what all this means. Life gauge max, that's kind of self-explanatory. It's how much health you have, whatever. Special stock max is how many special bars you can have. Like, if you wanted a Marvel vs. Capcom type game, by the way, you can't make those in this either. You'd have to go for special stock 5. There you go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Or if you wanted a limit of 3 max bars, just click on 3. Easy as that. Don't even worry about it. Special gauge max, it's the same as the life gauge max, how much you can have in 1 bar. And the starting stock is how many bars you start out with. Easy, whatever. We're going to go ahead and change these numbers here, because that's ridiculously OP. We're going to go ahead and keep that on 100. And we're going to set, when enemy hits, we're going to have it increase your special gauge by 3. And then when the enemy hits you, we're going to have it increase by 4. Or maybe, yeah, let's go with 2 and 4. Because I feel like, this is just a little off topic, a little balance thing that I feel. When the enemy is hitting you, you should be getting more meters so that you can make a comeback later on. It's a little balance thing. I'm gonna leave all of this alone right now. We're gonna leave that right there. Don't worry about it. I don't know what all it means. See this number here? What this pop-up that's showing up? I don't know if it's showing up for you, but it says here. Character revision: when continues attack, the quantity of attack designated hashtag are decrease. What? When you're guarding, get the designated percent plus the power percentage shaved. This is pretty much how much damage is removed, like when you attack on a special move or whatever when someone's blocking. So this is pretty much all you need to set up in your character's basic area. Now is when we get into the actual stuff. We'll set all this up here in a bit. This is where all your character's actions are. It gives you, I think, something like 30 when you first start. But we're going to be making a lot more later on. Don't you even worry about that. So, first, before we go into this, let's define the rest of these. We got hit junction. It looks pretty straightforward. It's just what happens when the player is inflicted with this hit junction, what skill it goes to. And spark is what hit spark shows up when you do that. And we haven't made any hit sparks, so we're not going to worry about that at the moment. Common images, just like in game system, we have to worry about that later, so we'll come back to that in a future tutorial. Commands, this is making up what all your attacks are. And as you can see, we got A, B, C, D, E, F. You click on those and click right here to change your directions, but we'll be going into that later on. This is what you assign when they're doing in those different states. We'll go into that in a future tutorial as well. CPU is a bit odd in Fighter Maker. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too acquainted with the CPU patterns, but I can give you a basic idea of how to make stuff work. But this is where you define your fighter's AI for when in arcade mode. Story mode. So let's say this is kind of the same thing for versus mode, this versus mode box at the start here. If you don't check this, you won't be able to select this character when you go into the story mode. But if you do, you can select them, and then this is where you define all your special fights and whatever. Your demos. Demos are like cutscenes, and all that good stuff. You can even make menus in demos. It's nuts. And then diversions, I'm not entirely sure how they work, but they give you... What the Sorry. Whoops. I can help you with these, but they're not great. Like I said, the translation is all messed up. Yawn, I'm sorry. The translation's all messed up, so it doesn't really make any sense. But we're going to leave that alone for now and turn off story mode. Okay, so that's the characters there, and we have Jotaro already set up, so let's just go ahead and open his BMP here. And while I'm in here, I believe it's showing up on here, yeah? Yeah, okay. Let's just go ahead and open up wherever you saved that file. Oh shit, yeah, I kinda never saved this file, did I? Whoops, yeah, that's something you should do. Oh. I made a mistake. Okay, something you need to do before you can put your files in there is friggin' save your files. Make sure they're saved in BMP format, or you're not gonna have a fun time. Oopsie. Go back over there. Clicked on the wrong thing. If you don't save them in the right way, it's not going to work out right. It won't load it in the engine. So we go to pictures, just save it as Jotaro Kujo BOP. Gotta make sure it's 256-bit bitmap or else it won't open. So let's go back into the engine and load those things right up. Went to the wrong channel. There we go. Open up. And then we go to our pictures. Jotaro Kujo, there you go. And you see here we got all the sprites. This is the sprite editor or inputter. You can make all this stuff happen whenever you want. That doesn't make any sense. I'm going to explain how this works real quick. So we have these various buttons up here. I believe they're showing up, aren't they? Yes, they are. So we've got this, which is to open the BMP, this, which is to insert an image before the one that is currently selected in the engine here. We have the insert image after the selected one, which is like the same thing as the button before it. Then we have replaces the current image, which is self-explanatory. It replaces the current image you have selected. So let's say you accidentally put in the wrong frame right after, like, you were trying to put in standing light kick and somehow put in a frame from the getting hit. You can just go ahead and replace that frame, don't even worry about it. Then we have this, select the whole image, self-explanatory, it just selects the whole thing, and if we press the button, it'll go in there. This is the frame takeoff transparent area, and as you see there, it went to the nearest pixel on each of the areas of the sprite sheet, so that it went to the nearest pixel on each area of the sprite sheet, and all this light blue here, because we did that, is going to get turned into transparency. Ooh, you know what? I forgot to go over something in our fan view. So let's go ahead and go back there and fix that. So go back to Earth and View. Something I forgot to mention here is because Fighter Maker is ridiculous. Let's go ahead and increase our color depth to 16.7 million colors. We're going to want to go down over to Image and then scroll down to Replace Color. Once you get this right here, I believe it's showing in OBS right now. Yeah. Once you get this here, you're going to want to go ahead and replace source color, which is 000, with new color 49, 49, 49. Or better yet, go for something a little darker but not too dark. 37, 37, 37, red, green, blue, all that good stuff. This is pretty much what you want your thing to look like. Tolerance value 121. We're going to go ahead and set that to something like 80. There we go. Apply to original image. Okay. And then if we zoom in here and look at our sprites, you'll notice any black that was on these. Hold on, let me just show paint dialog. You'll notice that any black that was on these sprites is now a slightly lighter black. I don't know if there was any on the Jotaro sprites because I haven't used these for a while, but let me just go ahead. Yeah, he had a black outline, so that would have been bad for us. So let's go ahead and explain why that would have been bad. Because of the way Fighter Maker's program works, let's go ahead and just decrease color depth and all that. Because of the way Fighter Maker's sprites work and how it removes transparency, it sets the transparent color, which is the color in the top left of the selection, it sets that to be pure black. And what that does is it tells the engine every time it uses the every time it loads a sprite to use or to turn that it turns that color into black, and black, like pure black in the engine, is registered as transparency. So anything pure black will show up as completely transparent. So you'd have, if we were to put in these sprites, it'd show up as he'd have like his outline would be nothing. So let's go ahead, just cut to the chase here. Wait, I haven't finished. Whoopsie. Okay. This is don't take off the transparent color if you don't want to take off the majority of the color, like the background image, the light blue. You can just uncheck that and it'll work. Use a private palette for this image. This will make more sense in a minute when I talk about palettes, but this is pretty much just telling the engine not to group it with the entire character's palette. It'll have its own palette and it won't be changed when you change colors of the character. Insert image with increasing palette. That doesn't make any sense, so let's go ahead and explain what that actually does. If you have this box checked, it'll insert the sprite without adding any colors. It'll like take any colors that are similar to another color and reassign them so that your palette doesn't get humongous. So that's pretty nifty if I do say so myself. Insert a directory of BMP file into the file. I don't know what that does. I've never had to use it. Delete all images that are not in use. It's self-explanatory, so just don't even worry about that. Unfortunately, I think, yeah, Jotaro's gonna be a little tiny. He's gonna be a little bitty dude. So we're gonna have to resize that image, and then, yeah. Hold on, I'll be right back. I gotta fix my sprites. Okay, so I'm back after like an hour, and as you can see, I resized him a bit. He's not very tall, but that's about the best I'm gonna get with the software that I have. Unfortunately, I couldn't resize him very well without making the image too blurry, and he's still all distorted and whatever, but this is what we're gonna have to deal with, and it doesn't look too bad, but scrolling, oh. Scrolling through all of these, you'll notice that this is not how the animation should look at all. Even if you click on this little animation button down here, you'll see down in the corner here that the animation has popped up. What is that? What is this? No. That should not be there. Let's just go ahead and... Holy shit, that's huge. Whoopsie, I have not fixed my thing. Okay, you'll see down here, in the animation thing, that doesn't really look right. So, what do we do about that? Well, luckily for us, Fighter Maker has accounted for such a thing, and allows you to reposition sprites using this little bar over on the side. So you see here, because of his coat, he starts to move towards the left. So what do we do about that? We just need to add a few digits to the X value, and there you go, it's fixed. And usually it just goes in a pattern here of how much it increases. You'll have to fiddle around with it for a little bit to get it to work. There are ways to make this better, but unfortunately this is like the best we're gonna get. I think it's pouring outside my house. Anyway, I am going to fix this animation. I will be right back in just a second. I have returned, and as you can see, he looks just a bit better. He doesn't look perfect, but you can also tell that the animation is playing just a little bit slower. And that is because, if you look over here, in the weight category, if you change this, it'll change how long that frame plays for. So I changed all that to 7 because through my experience with Fighter Maker, having idle frames play at around 7 or 5 or a good in between of 6, it seems to be a good idea. A good solid ground there. You'll see that he's wobbling a little bit, but that's okay. He looks good for the most part. At least he isn't wobbling all over the place. So now you're basically done for the idle pose. Let's go at it and move on to moving. But of course, to do this, I'm not going to have you watch me put in the movement. That would just be cruel of me. So I'm going to go ahead and cut here and return when I have both his forward and backward animations in. I will be right back. Alright, I have returned, and in the time that I've been gone, I've imported his forward and backward animations, and aside from that, I also covered how to do stages correctly, but unfortunately I botched that up, so we're just going to restart that. When you start a stage, or actually, yeah, let's just go ahead and okay, so let's make a new stage here. Let's make a new stage, and when you make a new stage, you'll be greeted with this screen right here. Player layers 1, and then if you advance, you'll have nothing. First thing you want to do, don't just stick your stage image in here if you want a flat stage. Don't just slap it in here and hope for the best. What you want to do is right-click on this thing that says Player Layers, and then add new skill, and it'll ask you to put in a new name. It doesn't actually show that on your screen, I don't think. But we're just going to call this ground. And then here, you'll be able to, here, let's add an image. And then we'll just recreate this stage. When you make a stage, you want to uncheck this box here. Because if you do, I'll show you what happens. Or if you don't uncheck that box. What the hell did I... If you don't uncheck that box, you see there that the sky turned all dead. Pretty much. And that's not what you want. So if you check or uncheck that box and then copy, you'll see it turns fine. So that's what you want to do when you make a stage. Let's get that out of here. But after you make the stage, if we were to go play on that stage in the test play, our characters would be standing right about here, and that's obviously not what we want. They want them to be down here. So what we do is we click on this ground area right here, check width and length, and then line it up with our stage, or change the values of these white boxes, because this is the size of our stage in real time. and you change them just so that they're at the boundaries of your stage. So this is a wall, this is a wall, this is the floor, this is the ceiling. There you go. That's the size of your stage. Good job. We've made a stage. Now I'm going to get rid of that because we're not going to have two at the same stage. Now, before you go do anything here, I'm going to teach you what you do here, because if you don't do it correctly, you're going to have a bad time. We're actually going to, when we get into the stage select, because that is a pretty advanced part of the, a pretty advanced part of coding, and in Fighter Maker, it's a pretty advanced part of the coding, but BGM here, you don't want to put the actual BGM in here, because every time you start a round, it'll restart the song. So you finish round 1, it'll be in the middle of the song, and it'll skip all the way back to the beginning. So, what now? You have your standing animation, you have your forward animation, you have your backward animation, you have your player 2 palette, which I know I didn't cover, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Just double click on a box, change the values up a little bit, and then, yeah, that's literally all there is to it. If, like, I could make a palette real quick if I wanted. Here, let's just go ahead and go back to standing, go to palette 3, and then change all this to red. Why not? Change it all to red. Make a red Jotaro, even though we can't use it right now because we don't have a character select put in, so we can't select colors. We're gonna do red Jotaro because I like red, and red is my favorite color. There you go. New palette. We made a new palette. Congratulations. We have blue, black, and red. We're sticking with blue since that's the player 1 color. Oop, forgot this. Need to make that red too. Make it a bit darker. There you go. That was the glare on his hat there. There you go. So we got red Jotaro, black Jotaro, blue Jotaro, forward, backward animations. It seems like it's good. We should be able to move around and stuff, right? Well, if you actually run the game, you'll see that that is not the case. I already have my controls and stuff set up. If you need to set your controls, go ahead and go to Option, Keyboard, and set up all that stuff in here. I don't think you could see that, mainly because I didn't have it in the right thing. No, it won't. But there's a little thing up in the top here where you can just select your options and whatever. Oop. I resized my game a bit too, so it's a bit more visible. But if you press backward or forward, you'll see he does the animation, but he doesn't actually go anywhere. What do we do about this? Well, first, let's back out of the game. Go back into the engine and head to our movement event. This is when we start getting into what is called the events. We're going to ignore everything down here right now and add a movement event. So we want to, this is a forward event, so we want to move forward. So if we open the animations box here, you'll see that opens down here. Get rid of the palette editor because it's in the way. It opens down here. And then when you look at it, it looks fine. But this is a good way to judge how far your character is going to move with each during the animation. So if you add a number to that, he starts moving. And if you want it to just keep going, you can go ahead and right click here, script movement, go to skill, and then just go to this one and go all the way back to right after the movement image. I don't know if any of that showed. I hope it did. Oh, but you'll see he just constantly moves forward. But that's a little slow for him, huh? Don't you think? Let's go ahead and make him move a little faster. Yeah, that's pretty good. What about a little faster? Nah, that's a little too fast. Let's go back a little bit. 250. Yeah, that's a good speed. Let's keep it at 250. And then let's get rid of the SG event because we don't really need it there. And then we just Control C, go to backward, do that, and that doesn't look right. So what do we do about that? Right click on this 4 times, and he'll be moving backward in the same speed. But if you're like me and you want characters to be as different as possible in many aspects, you want to change their backward speed as well. So he's going to have 170 backup speed, and he's going to have 250 forward speed. So now, if we test play, and we move around, they actually move around. But you'll see they don't actually acknowledge each other, and if you're right next to each other and you move, that happens. They just kind of, oh, and if you press up, because we don't have jumps put in yet, that happens. So, hooray, we have our forward and backward movement implemented. But if you press down or up right now, the game will glitch out like that. If you hold it, it'll just screw up, and then it'll take us back to what is actually supposed to be a character select, but we don't have anything put in here. So let's go ahead and go back to the engine, and if you'll excuse me for just a minute, I'm going to go ahead and put in the sprites for his jumping and everything. I'll cut to that so you don't have to watch that process. So as you can see, I'm back, and I do have Jotaro's jump animation in. He crouches down, then jumps, then jumps, and he falls until he lands. But as we see here, he doesn't jump or land. We create that illusion by making the sprite go up into the air a bit, but that's just for visual appeal. So, if you look here, we actually have 3 skills here: forward jump, neutral jump, and back jump. And then if we go past that, we see that we also have a falling event and an event that I've created just for polish reasons, landing, which will obviously play when we land. So what we're going to do is first teach you how to make this actually trigger, because it's not part of the main event. It will not just trigger when the character lands. We're going to have to make that work ourselves. So, what do we do to make our character jump? You would think you just copy this and then paste it here, get rid of the horizontal movement, and then you just add a Y, right? No, that's not at all what you do. You actually add negative Y. And as you can see, he kind of zooms up there, and we're going to fix that. He's still zooming up. But if you add gravity to the character, he will eventually fall down. See? If we want a really floaty game, that is good gravity, but we don't really want a super floaty game, so we're actually going to make him jump. Let's give him a little less gravity, or a little more. 25 gravity and 700 up. Yeah, that sounds good. There we go. That looks like a good jump speed right there. He's pretty floaty, but let's say we wanted him to drop a little harder and not as... He feels a little feathery. Let's go ahead and increase it to 1200 and increase it to, let's say, 42. Or, no, 55. 53 seems good. Maybe lower that. There you go. That's about the right height there. Okay, so we've got that in, and we can jump now. But as you can see, the landing event doesn't play. So let's go ahead and skip past these. It's pretty self-explanatory now that you know how to do that, but I'm going to teach you how to do it anyway. Now, before you do anything in falling, I have to teach you how a condition for detect skill works. This pretty much happens whenever you... This event has to be checked constantly, because if it doesn't... Wait, no, I'm thinking of something else. This event, as long as it's there until another detect skill appears, will detect a certain condition. These conditions are if the character lands, if the character's attack hits, if the enemy defends against the opponent's or the character's attack, if the character hits the wall, and if the character is in the middle of a throw. I'm not entirely sure what offset means, so let's just leave that alone. I haven't had to use it while making a fighting game in this game, so we're just going to stick with landing because that's what we're going to need here. And then we're going to just make it go, we're going to click on this and then make it go to landing. So when the character lands, it'll go to landing. And that's going ahead and go here to the go-to skill so that it'll loop, and always check for this. So now, I believe if we go for this, no, it's not going to, I guess. Oh, it's because, you know what? We made him... There we go. We made him stay in that state for too long. There you go. Now you can see the landing event play. And don't worry, it won't lock you in this event. It won't lock you in this event. At least I don't think it will. You can move freely after you land, as long as you're holding forward or backward. If it doesn't, I have a way to fix that too. So let's just go ahead and fix this locking you into the state for too long. Copy these over, make him go forward. Let's go make him go 300. That sounds about good. And then back jump will make him do minus 250, because we don't want a too big change in the horizontal movement. And there you go. That's about all we need for the jumping event. And now we'll test the game out, go into the Fighter Maker game, and now we can see that we can jump around at will. And unfortunately, yes, it does count us as an active, so it will lock us into that landing animation until it's finished. But your old pal Bash knows how to make it unlock you from that idle animation, or the landing animation. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that. This is going to be a little bit longer, but it's just basic movement, and it'll teach you how to do it anyway. Or the game won't teach you, but I will teach you, because I'm a nice guy. I'm not actually nice, don't let me fool you. Okay, so here's our landing animation, and we already know this is a problem because it's going to lock us into the landing animation until it's finished. So what do we do about that? So, what we're going to need to do is go to Condition Fork and Detect Command Input. What we're going to need here, we can set this command time to 10. Always do that when you're doing this, if it's just a single button input. The command to do here, as if you go, okay, so we're going to make it detect a pressing forward. And if it is, then we're going to make it go to forward. Just go to forward. Actually, let's go ahead and do something else, so this is a lot less of a messy script. Go ahead and add new skill, landing unlock, and then we'll have that there. We'll have another command divergence, set this to backward, go all the way to back. Crouching, if we're holding down, we'll go to crouching. Oh no, it'll go to mid-crouch, I'm sorry. It's supposed to go to mid-crouch. And then after that, we're going to go to jump up. Set this to back jump. And then we'll go front jump. So now, this event looks like it doesn't do anything because it isn't into any of our scripts. So what we do then, we go here, and we go to script movement, call skill. It'll be an SC. What you want to do is just set it to call this skill every single time, or before every frame of this animation. So that on every frame, if you do any of these things, it'll do the actions we specified. So now, if we test it, we should be able to just hold up and keep jumping. So let's try that out. And surely enough, there you go. Oh, but it forces us to keep going. That's a little odd. That's a little... Wait a minute. That's a good... Oh, wait. You know what? I did do something wrong. Let's go ahead and fix that, because I'm dumb. You also didn't get to see any of that, because I forgot to be smart and make it not. Okay. So, we gotta change all these to just be none. That's what you have to do. None. Okay. And now, if you go into the game, I think it should be okay now. Nope. I think the animation is just too long. Oh well. Pretty much what we're gonna have to do here is just make it, I'll have to play around with this a bit. But, I can make this work, I promise you. I'm stupid. Oh, you know what? I can make this work. Here, let's go ahead and show you how to make this work. This is the last part of the tutorial. So if you don't want to sit here and watch me do this, you can go ahead and quit. But what we're going to go ahead and do is copy an image from this skill, make a new skill called Interruption, and we'll make this last for 3 frames, and that seems like it's not going to be important at all, right? So we're going to go back to our landing skill, or landing unlock skill I mean, and we're going to have them all go to Interruption. So it doesn't force you to do any of these things, but directly after the end of this, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it should just force you back to the idle state. Oh, yeah, no, I'm just an idiot. Alright. Yeah, the animation's just too long. Oh well, we can fix this, I promise. Oh well. Actually, does it count you as active during the falling animation? I don't think it does. I think we have to actually just put the landing inside the falling animation. I don't know. Let me play around with this for a little bit, and I'll be right back. Okay, so straight up, I couldn't make it work. Oh well. The animation was just too long. The animations in the other game were just really short, so it wasn't a problem. They were just too long with Jotaro, so I couldn't make them work. I'm sorry. I wasted everybody's time. Oh well. Learning experience for me too, I guess. But that is going to be the end of part 1. Crouching is pretty self-explanatory. Like, I could make crouching work in like 2 seconds. Like, here, I'm going to go make the crouching animation. So, as you can see, I have gotten the crouching animation to work. And if you notice, when you come onto the crouching animation, he has his little cape flip. Like his cape twirls around a little bit. Looks pretty cool. But the reason that works with the crouching animation, I couldn't make it work with the falling animation, is because the crouching animation, or landing animation, I mean, the crouching animation is always set to be active. As you can see here, there's this little text here that says active, and when you do an attack or whatever, it counts you as inactive, which means you can't do any actions until that action is over. I'll try and find a way around that in the meantime, let you know if I find anything, but I'm not sure if I'm going to go any far with that. Anyway, that is going to do it for this tutorial. We set up basic movement, we set up a stage, and our character can move around the stage without glitching the game on at all. Unfortunately, I think I botched up the jump movement a little bit, because there are supposed to be a few takeoff frames in there, but he just kind of takes off in the air immediately. I'll fix that in the meantime, and it's pretty easy to do. I don't think you need me to show you. Anyway, the next video is going to cover basic hitboxing and setting up attacks and damage animations, so I'll make sure that you guys understand how to make the very basics of a fighting game work. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave below in the comments any suggestions you have, or anything you specifically want to see, like as ludicrous as you can possibly make it. I won't do it in the near future, but I do want to help you guys as much as I can, and the easiest way to do that is to know what you want. So let's say you wanted like how to mimic the Killer Instinct 3 combat system. I could show you how to do it. I just gotta know if people want to actually figure out how to do that. Just let me know what you want to see happen, and I'll try my best to make it work. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Stay serious.